In a neighborhood known for its serene charm and gentle rhythms, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingles with the whispers of passersby, an unfathomable tragedy shattered the calm on October 25, 2012. The Upper West Side, a canvas painted with quiet dignity, became the backdrop for a horrific crime that defied reason. On that fateful day, the laughter of children mingled with the unsettling echoes of a chilling scream, shattering the illusion of safety in a place where trust was once second nature. Yaslin Ortega, a nanny entrusted with care, now stands accused of an unimaginable act: the murder of two innocent lives, 6-year-old Lucia and her toddler brother Leo. As the community grapples with the aftermath of this deep betrayal, questions linger. How could something so unspeakable occur amidst the ordinary? Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. New stories every day. Ing off the walls, raw with urgency. "What was that?" she called out, her own heart racing as she felt the pulse of dread take hold. The atmosphere, once imbued with a comforting sense of familiarity, felt altered, charged. It was as if the air itself had grown heavy, laden with an unshakable foreboding. The building, typically a sanctuary of laughter and warmth, suddenly transformed into a labyrinth of uncertainty. The polished marble floors, which usually reflected the soft glow of the overhead lights, now bore witness to a moment that would strip away the innocence from the lives of countless residents. As Charlotte hurried forward, her mind raced through the fragments of that earlier encounter: the serene smiles, the laughter of children, the ordinary rhythm of life on the Upper West Side. What had changed so drastically in the span of a few minutes? Charlotte's footsteps quickened, her senses heightened, every creak of the floorboards beneath her echoing her rising panic. She reached the door to the Ortega family's apartment, a portal that had once promised safety and security, but now felt like a barrier to chaos. With trembling hands, she knocked frantically, her heart pounding like a drum against the unyielding silence that answered her. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. The apartment was a mix of warm hues and playful decor. Family photographs adorned the walls, and toys lay strewn across the living room floor, remnants of joyful days. But on that day, the scenes of domestic bliss were overshadowed by a darkness that seeped through the very walls, creeping into the minds of all who would later learn of the unfolding horror. As the police arrived, drawn by the piercing screams that shattered the calm, the Upper West Side watched in horror. Neighbors, once blissfully unaware of the looming tragedy, gathered outside, their faces taut with disbelief. They stood shoulder to shoulder, a collective of anguish and confusion, eyes darting toward the entrance of the building, where officers formed a barricade, their uniforms stark against the warm brick facade. The news of the incident spread like wildfire, igniting conversations drenched in disbelief. How could this happen here, in a community that thrived on trust and neighborly love? The very fabric of their sanctuary had been torn apart, threads unraveling with each whispered word, each attempt to process the unthinkable actions of Yaslin Ortega, the nanny who was meant to protect the two children, not become their executioner. Reports quickly began to surface, offering glimpses into the life of the woman who would soon be the center of a media frenzy. Yaslin Ortega, 50, had maintained a quiet presence, tending to her charges, providing care to two innocent souls whose lives, tragically, would come to an abrupt end. But beneath the surface of that seemingly mundane routine, darkness loomed, a complexity of motivations, struggles, and unspoken turmoil that ultimately cascaded into chaos. As the investigation unfolded, deeper questions emerged. What led to this moment of unimaginable despair? Was it a culmination of personal demons, abandoned dreams, or a moment of uncontrolled rage? The very notion that someone could harbor such darkness while engaging in the delicate act of nurturing children sparked conversations that spread beyond the borders of the Upper West Side. In the days that followed, the neighborhood became a living tableau of grief. Candles flickered on the sidewalks, illuminating the names of Lucia and Leo in soft, golden light. Mourners, with tears in their eyes, left flowers, toys, and notes, gestures of love for lives cut short, reminders of the fleeting nature of innocence and the fragility of trust. The tragedy resonated far and wide, shaking the foundations of communities everywhere. The questions lingered, haunting the twilight of the Upper West Side. In the hustle and bustle of urban life, how often do we overlook the pain that lies beneath a placid surface? And what can be done to prevent such horrors from echoing through the laughter of children and the trust of caregivers? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the streets, the Upper West Side remained a place of resilience, grappling with its sorrow while simultaneously seeking solace in the shared bonds of humanity. An intricate dance of grief and hope that would mark this community forever. Thing more than just a caregiver, she was a confidant, a companion, and an integral part of their family narrative. The words flowed from Marina's fingertips like the laughter of her children, capturing the essence of early motherhood, moments of joy intertwined with the inherent challenges. Yet amidst the warmth of those domestic tales lurked an unsettling truth, a chasm of unknowns beneath the surface of their idyllic life. The Upper West Side, with its tree-lined streets and classic brownstones, seemed to cradle the Krim family in a bubble of safety and normalcy. The soft whispers of children playing in nearby parks, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting from local cafes, and the vibrant culture of art and music created a tapestry of urban life that felt indomitable. But beneath this facade of tranquility, an undercurrent of vulnerability stretched unseen, tethering this bustling neighborhood to a world often characterized by unpredictability and peril. The Krims, like countless other families, sought to harmonize love and security within these walls, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond their threshold. The aftermath of the tragedy unfolded in stark contrast to the vibrant pulse of the city. Flowers bloomed in profusion, vibrant colors stark against the gray stone of the building, each stem a heartfelt tribute, each candle a flickering beacon of remembrance. They created a mosaic of mourning, a wordless language expressing collective sorrow and disbelief. As evening descended, residents gathered, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of candlelight. In hushed tones, they recounted stories of their own children, of neighborhood playdates and shared milestones, while the weight of the unexplainable tragedy hung heavy in the air. For many, the loss of Leo and Lucia was not a distant news story, but a piercing reminder of the fragility inherent in parental love. The profound questions reverberated through the community. How could someone entrusted with their children become a catalyst for such unimaginable pain? The juxtaposition of trust shattered against the harsh reality of betrayal created a dissonance that resonated in the hearts of all who heard the story. The very idea of a caregiver morphing from a figure of safety into an agent of danger is a fear that, once ignited, lingers long after the details fade from the headlines. Yoseline Ortega, the children's nanny, was an enigma. Her biography, intertwining with theirs, painted a picture of aspirations and resilience. She had moved from Santiago de Los Caballeros, burdened with the weight of her own dreams, determined to navigate the challenges of a new life in America while seeking stability for her family. The bonds that formed between her and the Krim family, initially marked by care and affection, began as a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. Yet, as the investigation unfolded, the darkness of her past raised a haunting question. How well can we ever truly know someone? The community, in its quest for answers, rotated through a cycle of grief and outrage. Questions were raised about the vetting process for caregivers, about the systems designed to protect children from harm. How could a family, with every intention of safeguarding their children, find themselves ensnared in such tragedy? The tension of disbelief intertwined with the urgency for reform sparked discussions that permeated every coffee shop and communal space. Amidst the turmoil, conversations shifted from mere speculation to collective calls for change. advocating for more stringent background checks, community awareness programs, and an emphasis on open communication about child care providers. This tragedy, while devastating, catalyzed a movement that transcended the personal, igniting a social dialogue on the importance of vigilance and trust in caregiving relationships. The lights of the Upper West Side flickered softly, as if the city itself held its breath, yearning for resolution while grappling with the shadows of despair. In the heart of Manhattan, life continued to pulsate, albeit with a newfound consciousness of the fragility of safety. The laughter of children, once a simple joy, now echoed with a reminder of the complexities of trust and the responsibilities shared by caregivers and parents alike. As the community began to heal, it became clear that the seeds of resilience would require nurturing, but they also sought to honor the memory of two bright lives taken too soon. And so, the Upper West Side stood at a crossroads, piecing together its identity while vowing to protect the innocence of its children, anchoring its spirit in love, remembrance, and an unwavering commitment to safeguarding the future. At the heart of this unfolding tragedy lay a shocking juxtaposition of trust and betrayal, a potent reminder of the delicate dynamic that governs the bonds between caregivers and the families they serve. Yoseline Ortega, a woman who had spent years working in the homes of others, became the center of a narrative that would ripple through the community and far beyond. In those initial days following the catastrophic event, as the city itself reeled in disbelief, the haunting question persisted. How could someone so trusted descend into such unspeakable violence? As Yoseline lay in her hospital bed, her mental state described as catatonic, a numbing response to trauma and guilt, she became less and less accessible to the world around her. Initially, her eyes would flicker in hesitant recognition. Over time, they became shuttered, closing off not only her own feelings but also the reality of what had transpired. The psychological toll was palpable, illustrating the profound and often invisible scars left on both perpetrator and victim. The truth of her actions was a heavy weight even she seemed to struggle to grasp fully, as she confronted the reality of having taken two innocent lives. The investigation that followed was a storm of public scrutiny and media sensationalism. The indictment of Yoseline on charges of first-degree murder was not merely a legal formality. It was a seismic event that sent shockwaves through a community already grappling with the grief and disbelief surrounding the deaths of 6-year-old Lucia and her 2-year-old brother Leo. The young children's absence was felt deeply, not just in their family's home, but across the playgrounds and neighborhoods where laughter once echoed. Their parents, Kevin and Marina Krim, found themselves thrust into a nightmare from which there seemed to be no awakening. With every passing hour, the initial shock transformed into a profound ache that would linger indefinitely. Public figures, community leaders, and even strangers felt compelled to respond. In the wake of such a horrific crime, Mark Hoffman, the president and CEO of CNBC, expressed the collective grief of the workplace. The grief that all of us feel for Kevin Krim, Marina Krim, and their family is immeasurable, he stated, capturing the widespread disbelief and sorrow. This was not just about the loss of two children. It symbolized the shattering of a community's security. Those who had shared laughs with Kevin at the office or seen Marina at the local grocery store now felt a sense of vulnerability that was deeply unsettling. In the days that followed the tragedy, Kevin and Marina's relatives flew across the country to lend their support during this harrowing time. The family's arrival transformed the landscape of mourning. It illustrated how interconnected the web of human relationships can be, especially in a city that epitomizes diversity. Yet, amidst the chaos of their grief, there was an unspoken acknowledgement of the painful reality that they would never again return to the home that had been filled with joy and laughter, now haunted by echoes of shattering loss. The family's refusal to re-enter that apartment was emblematic of a larger struggle faced by many who have experienced trauma. The once familiar spaces now felt foreign, tainted by memories too painful to bear. Kevin's father's words rang with a sorrowful truth. "I don't know if they'll ever go back there. I don't know if they even can." This profound uncertainty encapsulated the essence of trauma, a journey filled with questions that often remain unanswered. As the months passed, the case continued to draw attention, with details emerging that stoked the public's fascination and horror. Each revelation further complicated the narrative, presenting a chilling exploration of mental health and societal trust. Yosline's actions raised difficult questions about the systems in place designed to protect children and how those safeguards can sometimes fail catastrophically. In this dark chapter, the Upper West Side found itself at a critical turning point. The tragedy forced a reevaluation of the very frameworks that govern childcare, trust, and safety. The community began to mobilize, engaging in conversations about mental health resources, the importance of background checks, and the psychological well-being of caregivers. A palpable shift began to manifest as parents, caregivers, and children alike sought solace in solidarity. They gathered in candlelight vigils, shared stories of love and loss, and created safe spaces for dialogue, all while remembering the two lives that had sparked this awakening. In the aftermath of tragedy, communities often find ways to emerge stronger, guided by love and remembrance. The people of Manhattan, and particularly those of the Upper West Side, faced the daunting challenge of rebuilding a narrative rooted in hope after such devastation. Through the lens of collective grief and resilience, they began to forge a future where the memories of Lucia and Leo would live on, reminding all who would listen of the fragility of life, the power of trust, and the unwavering human spirit that seeks connection and healing in the face of unimaginable sorrow. In the dimly lit courtroom, an uneasy tension enveloped all present. Family members burdened by an unbearable grief, jurors grappling with the weight of life and death decisions, and attorneys embroiled in the intricate dance of justice and understanding. The heart-wrenching case of Yellen Ortega, charged with the brutal deaths of Lucia and Leo Krim, revealed a complex tapestry woven from the threads of mental illness, societal neglect, and the inexorable quest for accountability. The prosecution painted a dismal portrait of Ortega's actions on that fateful day, October 25, 2012. They argued that the meticulous planning preceding the attack was evidence of a cold calculation, a sinister intent that belied the defense's claims of insanity. Two knives, taken with forethought from a kitchen drawer, became the focal point of the argument. They were not mere instruments of chaos. They were tools wielded with a chilling purpose. The prosecution's narrative suggested that Ortega, in her mind, was entangled in a web of resentment against the Krims, who had made her feel inadequate and trapped, a narrative fueled by her long-standing battle with mental illness. Yet, juxtaposed against this portrayal of deliberate malice was the truth of Ortega's own torment, a life spent in the shadow of voices and hallucinations, with a history that echoed the cries of many who suffer silently. The defense aimed to illuminate this suffering, positing that Ortega was not a monster, but rather a victim of a society that had overlooked her cries for help. They argued that her acute psychotic state had eclipsed her ability to comprehend the wrongness of her actions, rendering her incapable of the intent required for murder. This raised profound questions about culpability and the nature of justice. Should a person be held fully responsible for actions taken under the overwhelming influence of untreated mental illness? As the attorneys wove their narratives, the courtroom became a microcosm of a larger societal dilemma. It illuminated the systemic failures that often leave those like Ortega in dire circumstances, battling demons that remain unseen and untreated. Many in society remain unaware that mental illness can manifest in insidious ways, often spiraling into crises that lead to irreversible consequences. The horrors of Ortega's actions, compounded by her mental health struggles, posed an unsettling inquiry. How can a society be both protector and punisher? The crux of the case hinged not only on the actions of one individual, but also on the implications of a justice system grappling with the intersection of mental health and criminal accountability. Was justice served merely by punishing Ortega, Or did true justice also demand a reckoning with the societal structures that contributed to her deteriorating mental state? The courtroom, while a space for legal adjudication, also transformed into a forum for deeper reflection on the fragility of human life and the complexities of morality. Lucia and Leo's untimely deaths became symbols of a broader tragedy, igniting conversations about mental health advocacy and the urgent need for systemic reform. The community was compelled to confront uncomfortable truths, the stigma surrounding mental illness, the lack of resources for those in need, and the haunting reality that untreated conditions can lead to catastrophic outcomes. As candlelight vigils filled the streets, they were not just in remembrance of two lost lives. They were a clarion call for change, a plea for compassion, and a commitment to ensuring that no one else would have to suffer in silence. In the end, the jury would have to navigate the delicate balance between empathy for Ortega and accountability for her actions. The verdict would resonate far beyond the courtroom walls, shaping discussions on mental health, justice, and the societal responsibilities that accompany both. As the community mourned, they did so with a newfound resolve, an acknowledgement that healing and understanding must accompany grief, and that the legacy of Lucia and Leo deserved not just remembrance, but action. The consequences of this case extended into the fabric of the community, sparking initiatives and conversations aimed at preventing future tragedies. Schools began to implement more robust mental health education programs. Local organizations rallied for better access to mental health services, and families formed support networks to ensure that those grappling with their own mental health challenges would never feel isolated again. The narrative of loss shifted toward one of hope and resilience, transforming a tragedy into a catalyst for change, a testament to the enduring strength of a community determined to honor the lives lost by building a future where compassion triumphed over indifference. The trial of Yeslin Ortega, a case that exposed the raw edges of human emotion and suffering, concluded not just with verdicts, but with an obligation, a compelling call to action that rippled far beyond the confines of a courtroom. The guilty verdicts handed down for the brutal stabbings of 6-year-old Lulu and her 2-year-old brother Leo transformed the narrative of this tragedy into one of profound resilience and community mobilization. It was a moment that demanded not only justice, but reflection on a collective responsibility to safeguard the mental health of caregivers and to protect vulnerable children. As the weight of the verdict settled on the community, there was a palpable sense of urgency. Families, educators, and local leaders found themselves united in a shared mission to ensure that such heartbreak would never be repeated. Across the city, coffee shops became informal meeting spots where parents discussed the need for more robust support systems. Schools initiated programs aimed at fostering emotional intelligence and resilience in children, while also ensuring that caregivers had access to resources and help for their own mental health challenges. The narrative of pain was gradually being transformed into a clarion call for prevention. The profound impact of the case was reflected in the poignant conversations that unfolded in its wake. Local organizations began to hold workshops and seminars, engaging parents in discussions about mental wellness and the signs of distress in caregiving roles. The community rallied to create a network of support for individuals and families grappling with mental health issues, recognizing that many caregivers, like Ortega, were often burdened by invisible struggles. This network allowed for open discourse, reducing the stigma surrounding mental health and offering pathways for healing. In the aftermath of the trial, the Krim family became emblematic of resilience amidst tragedy. Kevin Krim, who had once walked into the courtroom bearing the unimaginable weight of loss, found solace in his community's response. He actively participated in local support initiatives, sharing his family's story to raise awareness about the importance of mental health care for both parents and caregivers. His journey from grieving father to advocate offered a beacon of hope to others, showing that even from the depths of despair, purpose could emerge. Media coverage of the trial had not just informed the public. It ignited a larger conversation about systemic issues surrounding childcare, mental health, and community accountability. Editorials and opinion pieces debated the need for more stringent vetting processes for caregivers, alongside better training in mental health first aid. Legislators began exploring policy changes that would mandate mental health screenings for childcare professionals, aiming to prevent similar tragedies by identifying potential red flags early on. This case also illuminated the profound connections families have with their caregivers, those entrusted with their most precious lives. It urged parents to reflect on their relationships with caregivers, to ensure that open lines of communication existed and that caregivers felt both supported and empowered. As discussions continued, many families found ways to connect more deeply with their childcare providers, fostering an environment of mutual respect and understanding. The tragedy of Lulu and Leo Krim, while devastating, served as a reminder that the community held within it the power to enact change. The awareness raised by their story echoed in schools, community centers, and homes, prompting citizens to take ownership of mental health education. Through workshops and community seminars, families learned about the signs of distress and the importance of early intervention. The collective grief transformed into a commitment to ensure that no parent would feel alone in their struggles and no child would be left unprotected. Years later, the legacy of the Krim children would be honored in more than just memory. It would be woven into the very fabric of community initiatives and mental health advocacy. The conversations that began with their tragic loss continued to evolve, leading to significant partnerships between mental health organizations and local schools. In time, the community became a model for how to embrace grief as a catalyst for positive change, standing as a testament to the enduring strength of a people willing to confront their fears and forge a brighter future. The barometer of their shared experience was not merely their sorrow, but their relentless pursuit of understanding, empathy, and proactive change, ensuring that the spirits of Lulu and Leo would always guide their efforts towards compassion. In doing so, they turned a deeply painful chapter into a profound legacy of love and hope. In the wake of unimaginable loss, the Krim family story emerges as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the profound impact of community resilience. The harrowing trial, a microcosm of grief and anger, united a city in mourning, igniting conversations that transcended the courtroom walls. As the gavel fell, sealing the fate of Yaslin Ortega, a collective breath was held, not just for justice served, but for the promise of healing that lay ahead. This tragedy, while unthinkable, has sparked a movement, a commitment to safeguarding the mental health of families, ensuring that such darkness is met with unwavering light. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone. Comment your city and your local time. Say hello to the people in the comments. I would love to know where and when you're hearing this. And if you have a story you want me to cover, let me know. Subscribe for more. I will see you in the next one.